situation.
We face an entirely new war.
What Truman said he most wanted to avoid, yet had done nothing to prevent, had come about. The conflict had moved beyond Korea, and the United States was now at war with China.
Good morning, everybody, although it's not a good morning for the United Nations Army in Korea or the cause of democracy throughout the world. General MacArthur has announced a brand new war against 200,000 Chinese communist troops who right now are rolling back American, British, Turkish, and South Korean forces in the most serious UN retreat of the war. These developments have come with stunning suddenness in the past few hours, resulting in a communique from MacArthur's headquarters, which is perhaps the gravest document of its kind since World War II. It makes news so serious that all other developments this morning, storms, domestic politics, seem minor indeed by comparison.
In the savage early winter of 1950, United Nations forces in North Korea were reeling from an overwhelming communist attack. Their defeat was to rock the American government, change the fate of the Korean people, and shake the whole Western world.
It became apparent to me that the whole character of the war had changed as we got north of what is now the North Korean capital, Pyongyang, in snow, advancing northwards, with many people streaming back past us. We were to be the rear guard on the main western route. And by then it was known that anything up to 8 or 10 Chinese divisions were on that side of Korea. So we knew that the North Koreans were no longer the principal enemy, a broken enemy. We knew that we had a completely new and fresh foe to fight.
Mao Zedong's People's Republic of China, in existence for only a year, had come to the aid of North Korea, as theatrically reconstructed here. The Chinese slogan was, "Resist America, aid Korea." It was a battle both to defend their border and to help old comrades in arms, the Korean communists.
为了把美国人赶出朝鲜去，不需要
We were fighting to drive the Americans out of Korea, to stop their intervention in the affairs of Asia. This great goal inspired us with heroism and self-sacrifice, and we would look death unflinchingly in the face when we threw ourselves into battle. Our common greeting in Korea when we met, especially among old comrades, was not, "How are you?" but "Have you died yet?"
我们打招呼的问题呢，不是说 How are you？ 你是说什么呢？说你 Have you died yet？
In the autumn of 1950, 100,000 UN and South Korean troops split forces to occupy North Korea. By late October, advance elements had reached the Chinese border. Facing what they perceived as a threat to their security, the Chinese crossed the Yalu River and infiltrated the mountains, dividing the two UN armies. The Chinese joined forces with some 150,000 North Korean troops who had regrouped following their defeat at Incheon. MacArthur, commanding UN forces from Tokyo, discounted indications of this build-up. The attack, when it came, was a stunning blow that threw the UN forces into headlong retreat.
There was no doubt that the general view of the people in the Argylls who knew about strategy, etc., was that the whole army was retreating unnecessarily fast. And they felt, and this was just their opinion, that when the main bulk of the American army had come in, they'd all gone absolutely gung-ho for the north, and you couldn't see them for dust. They swept past the battalion, waving cheerfully, and wondering why the poor old Argylls were plodding along with their pipers as they went past. And after a few weeks, I think it was, the same Argylls were still plodding northwards when the whole caravan came from the north, going equally fast to the south, and passed by as if all the devils in hell were behind them.
At the White House in Washington, top defense officials of the nation gather to discuss the gravest world crisis since Poland and Pearl Harbor. The flagrant aggression of Chinese communist troops in Korea arouses the country's ire. With the North Korean bandits well under control and with the promise that UN troops would be withdrawn, the unexpected entry of 300,000 Red Chinese across the Manchurian border may well precipitate World War III.
We are fighting in Korea for our own national security and survival. We have committed ourselves to the cause of a just and peaceful world order through the United Nations. We stand by that commitment.
The crisis deepened when Truman revealed at a press conference that the atomic bomb was being considered. He implied the decision was up to the commander in the field, in other words, MacArthur. America's allies were alarmed, and British Prime Minister Atlee hurried to Washington.
My aim in these talks is to align our policies in the new and troubled situation in the world and to find the means of upholding what we both know to be right.
Atlee and Truman held several days of talks. The real issue was whether to attack China itself. Following a brief discussion, use of the atomic bomb was rejected.
Among other things, as far as North Korea itself was concerned, there were no atomic targets. And we were bombing with conventional weapons everything that moved in North Korea, every brick standing on top of another. So we didn't need the atomic bomb as far as North Korea was concerned. But opening up an atomic war against China was another question entirely. You see, in Korea, we already had a much larger war than we wanted. And we didn't want to expand that war into war with China or war with the Soviet Union. So we tried to handle it in such a way as not to let it slide down the slippery slope into a general war.
Atlee concurred. In private, he urged Truman to limit the war to Korea, warning that an attack against China could well lose America the support of her allies. In public, however, he was careful to preserve a united front.
Our forces are fighting alongside yours, and you may be certain that in fair or foul weather, where the stars and stripes fly in Korea, the British flag will fly beside them.
The stars and stripes were still flying in Korea, but only just. High in the northern mountains, American, British, and South Korean forces were in deep trouble. 15,000 US Marines were cut off at the Changjin Reservoir, a place they knew as Chosin. Frozen Chosin.
We get hit, and we get hit with waves of Chinese. I mean, the numbers that they had were tremendous. That's when they had their charges, and manpower to them was just unimportant. They didn't care how many men that they lost or anything. And they kept moving units from here to there and here to there, by acting more or less as a fireman would, putting out the hot spots.
When I was in the Chinese army, the communists told us that the Americans could not fight. They were soft, wealthy boy soldiers, and when they marched, they needed quilts on the ground. We outnumbered them 10 to 1. The American bullets were not as numerous as our Chinese men.
To beleaguered Americans, the Chinese seemed superhuman. But captured prisoners revealed appalling hardship. Unable to light fires because of air attack, they slept out in temperatures that fell to minus 40 centigrade.
When we reached North Korea, it was much, much colder than mainland China. A lot of people I knew lost their hands. Some lost their ears and even their feet because of the cold.
The Marines also froze. Exhausted by constant night attacks, soldiers simply slept in the snow. Frostbite claimed more victims.